the news tonight,
the owners of this country have not been allowed to speak.
Leader of Opposition in Parliament, Matthias Mpuga, asks Bunyoro leaders to listen to whoever is skeptical about the oil pipeline to avoid regretting in future.
Before the end of this month, we shall have filed that petition.
Human rights lawyers and activists have vowed to go to court to challenge the Computer Misuse Act assented to by President Museveni yesterday.
There is no way an illegal company can be registered by us.
Also tonight, the National Lotteries and Gaming Regulatory Body has explained the red flag was raised on BLQ Football Club platform that fleeced people billions of cash in July. In sports, SC Villa walk away with bragging rights after defeating Express FC 2-0 in the Kampala derby of the Star Times Uganda Premier. Good evening, thank you for joining PM Edition on CTV. Watch us live on our site, www.ctv.co.ug. You can also follow our updates on our socials, CTV Uganda for Facebook and at CTV Uganda for Twitter, as long as you don't post anything contrary to the Computer Misuse Act 2022. We want you alive and free. I'm Kalachi Brian with Isaac Luchams. We get started. The Leader of Opposition in Parliament, Matthias Mpuga, calls upon Ugandans and other individuals who have a stake in the country not to brush aside concerns of the European Parliament that wants the construction of the East African crude oil pipeline to be delayed until compensation matters and the environmental concerns are addressed. Mpuga and his team who are in Bunyoro say that as much as Ugandans need to earn from the oil resource, exploration should be done in a manner that will not cause lasting impact on other sectors like tourism and agriculture that will support Uganda for centuries. Take a look.
Last month, the European Parliament passed a resolution asking stakeholders behind the construction of the East African crude oil pipeline to be delayed until controversial issues like land compensation matters and environmental concerns and unfair resettlement of people are reviewed. The EU Parliament said the route of the pipeline that will run from Hoima to Tanga in Tanzania be redrawn to ensure that sensitive natural momentums like natural parks, rivers, swamps and forests that sustain agriculture and tourism are not destroyed by the pipeline. The Leader of Opposition in Parliament, Matthias Nsamba, and a group in his shadow cabinet met Bunyoro Kingdom officials who were led by Kingdom's Prime Minister Andrew Byakutaga to share ideas on the best approach to Bunyoro and Uganda's development. Byakutaga says it is not proper for Europeans to delay the construction of the pipeline. Byakutaga says the oil project will improve the kingdom's development.
Whoever is opposed to this eco project, because for us, the people of Bunyoro, we think this is an opportunity for us to develop. We've suffered for very many years, actually hundreds of years. I don't want to go into the history. It's very painful, but also it's still very fresh in our memories. So when people, especially foreigners, sit in foreign capitals and start making resolutions which are affecting our well-being, affecting the quality of lives of our people, we find that very disturbing and very bad.
He says the European Union did not base their stand on facts about the project since the number of people who will be displaced is not 150,000. He asked members of the opposition to base their arguments on facts and interests of the country.
The people impacted on by the ECOP in Bunyoro are about 3,500. And so we thought there was a lot of misinformation which was used to come to that resolution or that conclusion. No one has been evicted by that project.
Mpuga said such a major project is not controlled by Ugandan officials alone, and any concern from all stakeholders in Uganda and across the world should be listened to before the pipeline is constructed to avoid possible mistakes.
We know that this country does not belong to politicians, even when they have the biggest microphones wherever they stand. This country has owners, and the owners are decent and silent. In some cases, the owners of this country have not been allowed to speak. But when we go there, because we know we seek their audience, humbly seek their audience, one, to inform them that we are their servants.
Mpuga and his team held a public dialogue on the pipeline in Chikube district.
A section of members of parliament has vowed to introduce a bill against the introduction of the genetically modified organs. The lawmakers are led by Dr. Sababuturo. They accuse individuals and organizations behind GMO bill of ill motives of regressing Africa's progress. Here's more.
To successfully grow genetically modified foods, farmers have to use a lot of fertilizers, herbicides, and other expensive inputs. This is one of the reasons why opponents of the genetically modified organisms believe that their introduction in Uganda is not sustainable and will eliminate smallholder farmers who are the majority on the continent. These farmers use conventional farming methods.
Where you have planted GMO crops, water is contaminated, you are using inorganic fertilizers, you are introducing new varieties of more deadly weeds as you are trying to use herbicides to make your crops grow. And so you find that these are actually a danger to our society.
Why do they want to introduce it? Did we complain? Is there any complaint in Africa that we want GMO?
Much of Europe has said no to GMOs. 50 countries in Africa out of the 54 have said no to GMOs. And so those who are rushing to persuade us to go the way of GMOs have their own agenda.
This comes at a time various parts of the country are experiencing hunger attributed to factors like drought. However, genetically modified crops are believed to provide a solution because they are resistant to drought.
We should actually be the last to be introducing GMO foods. And that is why we are currently working on a bill as Ugandans to prohibit GMO in our country.
The MPs who oppose them say other factors like population growth, especially on the African continent, has attracted the attention of Western powers who want to introduce technologies that will stop population growth.
That the maize they are giving us clearly is intended to ensure that men don't produce. And it's also available for women who want to avoid pregnancy. So they think they are going to manage these Africans by way of food.
Since the introduction of GMO crops, the fertility of not only men but even of women has gone down.
The MPs say Uganda should introduce and invest in seed banks where local seeds that are affordable to farmers can be preserved.
If we accepted GMO plants to be introduced here, very soon we shall have all our traditional crops infected with the GMO pollen. That is through wind, for example. Other agents of pollination include insects. Insects flying from one plant to another doing cross-pollination. Birds.
They have introduced a huge bank, and that's where you find our seeds. African seeds are in Norway right now, and they are kept there. They want us to do away with our seeds, but they are keeping them. Now ask them, why are you keeping our seeds?
The GMO bill was first passed in the 10th Parliament, only to be challenged in court. Ramson Muhire, CTV PM Edition.
On Thursday, President Museveni assented to the controversial Computer Misuse Act, Bill 2022, which has been described by some people as a law intended to silence critical voices online. The bill, which is now an Act of Parliament, was passed by the August House on September 8th, 2022.
Parliament passed the bill amid criticism from several human rights defenders and other stakeholders who urged that it was drafted in bad faith to protect the corrupt public officials and abusers of human rights. They said any law that penalized those who demand accountability from their leaders has no place in a country that claims to be a democracy. However, lawyers and human rights activists say they are ready to challenge it in court.
Such amendments are bad laws which are intended to suffocate the voices of good people.
For me, I think that it's draconian, it's unconstitutional, and we have decided, just like we petitioned against the initial act, which has been amended, we are also going to petition the Constitutional Court to seek a declaration that this act is unconstitutional, and we shall pray that this act is thrown out. We are optimistic that before the end of this month, we shall have filed that petition, and we know that all the justices of the Constitutional Court, who very much appreciate the law, shall see that this law doesn't meet the test of the Constitution and it should be thrown out.
The law, they say, also threatens the work of investigative journalism.
Investigative journalists go around their job by doing whatever they're doing for purposes of exposing maybe a rot or evil, and we've had many exposing corruption, exposing robberies, exposing crime. But now, what is going to happen is that even if you are to stealthily get the pictures or the footage of someone in the course of a crime, you cannot rely on that as evidence, because the person instead can even open up a criminal case against you for taking their footage without consent.
Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu, the leader of the opposition National Unity Platform Party, has been encouraging party members to use social media to disseminate human rights violations masterminded by government operatives. The act, it also criminalizes writing, sending or sharing of any information through a computer which is likely to ridicule, degrade or demean another person, group of persons, tribe, ethnicity, religion or gender, among others.
Twitter is much more effective against this dictator. So I hereby call upon all of you who love Uganda to embrace Twitter. Go on to Twitter and sabula them on Twitter. Tag them, tag all these organizations. I want all of you to be on Twitter.
So it's going to make even fighting of crime harder. And I know that the targeting of the intentions of the mover of the bill possibly were only against those who are critical on social media, but it certainly has far-reaching implications and everyone is going to feel it. So everyone is at risk, and the only remedy is in the Constitutional Court removing this law from our books.
The legislation, which was introduced by Kampala Central Member of Parliament Mohamed Nsereko, listed a raft of punitive measures against people who send malicious information, hate speech, unsolicited information, and share information about children without the consent of their parents or guardians. The punishment for convicted persons is 15 million Ugandan shillings or a 7-year jail term, if not both.
Well, that takes us for a short break. When we return, more news.
Do you love me?
Very much.
I'll catch you one day. Pants down.
I want to spoil you. I want you to eat my money.
She believes I'm in love with her guy. Will you go? If I had to leave everywhere I'm not loved, where would I end up? The dirty guy hides in the hospital for 40 years, but at night, he walks the streets, commits crimes, and then he comes back and pretends to be alive again. I will break you, Spooky. Do not answer any question about Roho kwa Roho. It's your brain!
Now showing on CTV. Don't blink.
Wake up, Kalaya
The Campus Carnival is finally here! Campuses from over 20 universities and 50 institutes all in one place for a 2-day non-stop action-packed experience on the 15th and 16th of October 2022 at the Nile Nest Ginger at only 100,000 shillings. Come ready to party and have maximum fun. For bookings, call 0750-691-693 or 0783-894-676. Powered by Campus Rave, Pepsi Max, Kiss Condoms, CTV, Flex Events, 3D Mobile Cinema, Halt UG, and Uganda Warj.
Welcome back. You're watching PM Edition with me, Kalachi Brown, and Isaac Luchams on Sign Language. Ugandans have on several occasions been fleeced in various Uganda Communication Commission has encouraged Ugandans to support the local talent as one of the way of building more jobs. UCC says talent in the art and film industry is supporting millions of Ugandans. Take a look.
The Uganda Communications Commission has embarked on supporting Ugandans who have ideas to produce films and related content.
It's undoubtedly a wonderful opportunity, not just for Tembele, but for our local film industry. So everybody out there, screenwriters, actors, wardrobe artists, stage managers, our opportunity, let us not throw the ball.
Sewan Kambo was commenting on the Tembele movie that was nominated for next year's Oscar Awards. She says Ugandans need to have well-produced films to compete on the world market.
The Oscars Awards, as I have mentioned, are among the prestigious awards related to the film events such as the Cannes. We have the Toronto International Film Festival, and these provide filmmakers and film critics all across the world the opportunity to engage with the most significant cutting-edge films.
In 3 local languages, it's not in English. We only use English captions or subtitles. Tembele is in Kiswahili, it's in Luganda and Runyankore. So for those who thought Tembele is in English, no, it's in our local language. So I'm imploring the media, Ugandans, to come watch this beautiful film. When you're called upon, we'll communicate dates. Then I have thoughts that this film could be screened around the regions in Uganda, if there's that opportunity. And Madame Edie, I don't know what you think about that, but I'm glad that I'm seated close to you.
The art and film industry is one of the sought-after industries that attract big money across the world.
Well, Ugandans have on several occasions been fleeced in various financial scams, but the fraud seems not to end. A couple of days ago, dozens of people have accused BLQ Football Club platform of fleecing their millions of money in a similar fashion. Take a look.
BLQ Football was a click a button Ponzi scheme that purposefully targeted Ugandans. The recruitment, initially spread to China, but was promptly shut down by September. The Click a Button app-based Ponzi schemes began emerging towards the end of 2021. They mostly target third world countries where mobile phones are the dominant access point to the internet. On October 12th, the Ugandan Lotteries and Gaming Board published the BLQ Football Securities Fraud Warning. At the time, the company was running its operations on platforms such as Facebook and through certain URL website codes. Following its sudden closure, the National Lotteries and Gaming Regulatory has come out to explain how the company was scammed.
First of all, this is an illegal company. There is no way an illegal company can be registered by us. I think we need to start it, to address this issue from that point. Number 2, we are yet to confirm the figure which has been which has been taken away from people out of this arrangement.
According to Musasizi, the scam scheme was noticed in early July.
We got to know about it around July, and we have been following. We could not come to address the general public before we arrived at the conclusions. Who are the registered owners of the company? It's a one director company owned by someone called Oworu Mary.
They say they are implementing an online National Central Electronic Monitoring System to help capture such incidents, hence monitoring all forms of games.
We are going to interface with each and every gaming system and machine. And in real time, we are able to monitor what we call significant events that happen on these platforms. Significant events are basically both financial and non-financial transactions that happen on gaming platforms. This system is going to interface with Uganda Revenue Authority, and URA will be able to effectively collect taxes in the gaming industry. We are going to interface with NILA database so that we do validation and ensure that underage gaming is prevented.
PLQ has been conducting betting activities illegally without a license from the National Lotteries and Gaming Regulatory Board. Hundreds of people are counting losses. At the time of closure, the China-based company had reportedly amassed over 50 billion shillings before closure. Tony Patila Humza, CTV, Pure Edition.
Away from Uganda, Kenya's Treasury Cabinet Secretary Wuko Yatani has repudiated reports that the East African Economic Powerhouse defaulted on its China railway debt. And from the Mopti region of Mali, a blast left at least 11 dead in a suspected terrorist attack. More in this report. Kenya on Thursday denied reports that it had defaulted on interest repayments on a loan advanced by China for the construction of a railway line from the port city of Mombasa that opened in 2017. The $5 billion project, financed 90% by China, replaced the so-called Lunatic Express, a line built more than a century ago by colonial power Britain, which was notorious for lengthy delays and breakdowns. Kenya's Business Daily reported that the government failed to repay interest on the loan in the financial year ended June, attracting a fine of Kenya shillings 1,300 million. But Treasury Cabinet Secretary Wuko Yatani rejected the report as misinformation, saying the financial position of the East African Economic Powerhouse was sound and robust. Currently snaking from Mombasa via the capital Nairobi to the Rift Valley town of Naivasha, it is planned to eventually link Uganda, Rwanda, South Sudan, Burundi and Ethiopia. The railway was to be managed by the Chinese contractor for 5 years before being handed over to the Kenyan government. But it has posted losses, with analysts worrying the trend could continue after newly elected President William Ruto last month reversed a policy that made it mandatory for cargo to use the railway. China is Kenya's second largest lender after the World Bank and has funded a number of costly infrastructure projects that have raised concerns about Nairobi taking on more debt than it can afford. The country's public debt load in June stood at 8.6 trillion shillings, about $71 billion, an 11.5% rise from a year earlier, according to the government figures. According to police and local sources, an explosion killed at least 11 people on a bus in central Mali on Thursday, a region regularly rocked by jihadist violence. A security source said the bus was struck by a blast on the road between Badiangara and Guadaka in the Mopt area in the early afternoon. A police officer who spoke on condition of anonymity gave a provisional toll of 11 dead and many seriously injured. Mali is struggling with a long jihadist insurgency that has claimed thousands of lives and forced hundreds of thousands from their homes. Mines and improvised explosive devices are among the jihadist weapons of choice. They can explode on impact or be detonated remotely. A report by the UN mission in Mali, MINUSMA, found that as of August 31st, mines and IEDs had caused 72 deaths. It said most of the victims are soldiers, but a quarter are civilians. The latest from the Russia-Ukraine war is that Moscow alleges that several people have been killed in the Ukrainian shelling of Russian border regions. And in Brazil, the Brazilian Consumers Association has succeeded in getting justice after a Brazilian judge fined Apple $20 million over iPhones without charges. Here's more. Russia has opened a criminal investigation into alleged Ukrainian shelling of a Russian border region. Moscow has reported that the strikes killed and wounded several people. The State Investigative Committee did not say how many people had died in Thursday's incident. Reportedly, shells fired from Ukraine destroyed an ammunition depot in the Belgorod region. Russian officials also accused Ukraine on Thursday of strikes on border regions that hit a school, an apartment block, and an electricity substation. Meanwhile, Ukrainian presidential advisor Mikhail Podolyak said on Twitter that Russia had launched a missile towards the Ukrainian city of Kharkiv, but something went wrong and it hit a residential building. Remains of a missile fell near the railway station in Belgorod region, following which train operations had been suspended early on Friday, Vyacheslav Gladkov, the governor of the region, said. Separately, Gladkov also informed that a border post in Shebekino adjoining Kharkiv and an ammunition depot near Belgorod city had been destroyed in Ukrainian strikes. Ukraine has been accused of Russia's border regions of attacking power lines in fuel and ammunition stores ever since the military intervention started on February 24th. However, Ukraine has not claimed responsibility for Thursday's attack. Ukraine and its Western allies have accused Russian forces of war crimes and targeting civilians. A Brazilian judge has fined Apple $20 million for selling iPhones without charges, calling it an abusive practice that forces customers to buy an additional product. The decision, which can be appealed, came after Brazil's Justice Ministry slapped a separate fine of nearly $2.5 million on Apple in September over the same issue and barred the US tech giant from selling its iPhone 12 and 13 models without charges. The new fine of 100 million reais were awarded by a Sao Paulo civil court judge as damages in a lawsuit filed by the Brazilian Consumers Association. Apple stopped including outlet charges with new iPhones in October 2020, saying it wanted to help reduce electronics waste. But the move, according to Judge Caramuru Afonso Francisco's ruling, effectively requires consumers to purchase a second product in order for the first to work. He ordered the California company to supply chargers to all consumers in Brazil who bought iPhone models 12 or 13 in the past 12 years and begin including them with all new purchases. Apple is also facing charger-related headaches across the pond. Last week, the European Parliament passed a law requiring all smartphones, tablets and cameras to use USB-C ports as the single charger standard from late 2024, which will force Apple to change its phone designs. Well, that takes us for a short break. When we return, sports action. Welcome back. Thank you for not blinking. In our sports news, AC Villa walked away with the bragging rights as they defeated Express FC in the Kampala Derby in the Star Times Uganda Premier League. The Joggers defeated Express 2-0 at Wankulukuku Stadium. Take a look.
SC Villa have defeated Express FC 2-0 today in the Star Times Uganda Premier League. SC Villa, who last won against their opponents in 2020, saw most of the ball in the first half, failing to create any clear goal-scoring opportunity. Alan Kaiwa was put through on goal, chipping Martin Elungat, but the Villa custodian was alert and put the ball for a corner. There were less chances after, as the game was scoreless going into half-time. In the second half, SC Villa came out firing and were rewarded with their resilience in the 55th minute as Ivan Seruide scored a free kick to open the scoring. The hosts were boosted by the goal, and it did not take them long for them to double the lead as 2 minutes later, when Ivan Bogire released Charles Bale, who put the ball into an empty net to make it 2-0. Express FC did not show any intention of a comeback, and it was SC Villa having the better opportunities to get a third goal as the game ended 2-0. Express's loss leaves them in fourth on the log on 4 points after 3 games, and next entertain Gaddafi FC in their next league encounter. SC Villa, who are in second on 7 points, will be on the road in their next league meeting in the first versus second affair with Bull, who also have 7 points. Bull FC were also in action today as they failed to make it 3 wins from 3 after URA scored a last-minute penalty as the game ended 1-1 in the Star Times Uganda Premier League.
Well, it has been a pleasure hanging out with you tonight. I'm Kalachi Brian with Isaac Luchams on Sign Language. We wish you a good night.